I'll tell you what broke me that night. Not the cold, not the silence. It was the way their laughter rose when I tore the paper and found nothing inside. Christmas Eve in Maplewood, Ohio. Snow packed against the windows like old cotton. The tree blinked with red and gold lights, too bright, too cheerful for what was about to happen. I sat in the corner armchair, cardigan pulled tight around me, watching the family I once believed was mine. My son David, his wife Laura, and their two kids, Sammy and Chloe, bustling around the tree like actors in a commercial. Laura had insisted I come early this year. She even texted, "We saved a special gift for you, Joe." Special. The word clung to me as I carried my homemade fruitcake through the front door. I'd baked it the same way every December since my husband died. But it was shoved to the sideboard without a word. They were too busy clinking glasses of champagne. I sat there clutching the wrapped box they'd placed on my lap. The paper was silver, the bow large, glittery, loud. Everyone leaned in, smiling too wide. "Go on, Grandma," Chloe chirped, her phone in her hand, recording. "Open it. We want to see your face." Her words hit me strange. Not "we want to see you happy," but "we want to see your face." Like I was an exhibit. I peeled the paper back carefully. I always did. My fingers knew the motion, slow and steady, because I saved ribbons and reused them, something they mocked me for. Inside was a red box, firm, heavy, promising. I lifted the lid. Empty. Not just empty, lined with tissue paper, smoothed neatly, like someone had taken time to make sure it looked presentable in its nothingness. For a moment, the room went still. Then Sammy burst out laughing. Chloe followed, phone raised higher. Even Laura chuckled, covering her mouth in a fake gasp. David. My boy. My own son. He just shook his head with a grin. Guess Santa forgot to fill it, Mom. Maybe next year. Their laughter spilled across the living room, bouncing off the ornaments, tangling with the smell of cinnamon candles. My ears burned. My chest felt like it was folding in on itself. I didn't laugh. I didn't cry. I just looked into that empty box, at the tissue paper that rustled in the draft, and thought, this is what I am to them. A box. Pretty on the outside. Hollow inside. "Come on, Grandma, don't be mad," Chloe said, rolling her eyes. "It's just a prank." A prank. On Christmas Eve. In front of the tree where I once watched David rip open toy trains with eyes wide as the winter sky. Back then, he'd always run to me first, shouting, "Thank you, Mom." Now he couldn't even muster a sorry. I set the lid back on the box. My hands didn't shake. I placed it on the coffee table gently, like it might break, though it was already broken. Laura leaned in, her perfume sharp, expensive, choking out the faint pine scent of the tree. "Oh, Joe, don't sulk. We all thought it'd be funny. You should have seen your face." That did it. My patience cracked like thin ice under a heavy boot. "My face," I said, my voice low, flat. "That's what you wanted? To watch me open nothing and laugh at it?" No one answered. Sammy fiddled with his phone. Chloe whispered something to Laura and snickered. David cleared his throat, muttering, "Don't make this a big deal, Mom. It's just a joke." A joke. I looked around the room. The fireplace glowed. Stockings hung in neat rows, their names embroidered in gold. Not mine. Never mine. The table sparkled with plates of glazed ham, mashed potatoes, sugared pecans. I had baked for years, cooked until my back screamed, filled their plates until they couldn't eat another bite. And now, all they had saved for me was emptiness dressed as generosity. I stared at David. He wouldn't meet my eyes. His shoulders slouched, like a boy caught cheating on a test, but too proud to admit it. I wanted to say 100 things. That I raised him alone after his father died, that I worked double shifts at the diner so he could go to college, that I sold my mother's locket to pay his first month's rent. But none of that mattered now. What mattered was the silence that pressed down on me. Heavy. Final. I stood. The chair groaned under the release of my weight. My knees ached, but I didn't let them see it. I picked up my fruitcake from the sideboard. Its foil wrap caught the glow of the tree. My last offering. My last tradition. "Where are you going?" Laura asked, her smile twitching, faltering. I looked at her, then at my son, then at the grandchildren who thought betrayal was entertainment. My voice was sharp enough to cut the ribbons on every gift under that tree. "I'm going home," I said. "Enjoy your Christmas." The room froze. Chloe lowered her phone. David muttered, "Oh, come on, Mom," but I was already at the door. Outside, the snow was sharp under my boots. The night air burned my lungs. Behind me, laughter faltered into murmurs, then silence. I walked down the icy path, fruitcake heavy in my arms, and for the first time in years, I felt something stronger than shame. Not sadness. Not even anger. Clarity. They thought the gift was empty. But they were wrong. The box was empty. I wasn't. And by next Christmas, they'd learn exactly how full of fire I still was. Granny Jo leaves the house with the empty gift, her mind already turning toward revenge. The family doesn't know it yet, but this Christmas prank just lit a fuse that won't go out. I didn't sleep that night. The clock ticked. The pipes groaned. Snow tapped against the window like it was keeping score of my thoughts. I sat at my kitchen table, the fruitcake untouched in front of me, knife glinting under the yellow bulb overhead. I wasn't hungry. Hunger wasn't the ache in me. It was something colder. Their laughter wouldn't leave my head. Chloe's phone lifted like a weapon, David's shrug, Laura's smirk. An empty box, they called it. Just a prank. They had no idea what they'd done. I opened the drawer where I keep bills and receipts. Years of neat stacks, rubber bands, scribbled notes. I pulled out the thick envelope marked David. Mortgage co-signing papers. The car loan I paid off when he was drowning in debt. A letter where he promised to pay it all back, every cent. He never did. Next came Laura's folder. Credit card balances. She once begged me to sign as guarantor, just for a few months, Joe, we'll handle it. My name was still there. They depended on me more than they'd ever admit. I traced the ink of their signatures with my finger. My lips curled into something close to a smile, but sharper. Empty box, huh? Let's see how empty your life feels when the real support is pulled away. By dawn, I had a plan. Not all of it, not yet, but the bones of it. I brewed coffee so strong it could wake the dead, sat down, and started making lists. 1. Assets. What they think is theirs, but isn't. 2. Debts. What they've hidden under my name. 3. Secrets. Things they wouldn't want whispered at the wrong time. The list grew fast. At 9 a.m., I called my bank. The young teller's voice was cheerful, too cheerful. "Yes, Mrs. Johnson, we can absolutely freeze that line of credit. Would you like notifications sent to the cosigner?" "No," I said, steady as steel. "Let them find out the hard way." Click. Done. By noon, I walked into the county clerk's office. My coat smelled faintly of cinnamon from the fruitcake still wrapped at home. The clerk looked at me like I was just another old woman confused about paperwork. His mistake. "I'd like to review a deed transfer," I said. "Johnson Property, Maple Street." He tapped his computer. "Looks like you're on file as contributing to the down payment." "I'm aware," I said. "I want copies of everything. Certified." When he handed them over, I held the papers like ammunition. Because that's what they were. On the way out, I passed the courthouse steps. The flag whipped in the icy wind, sharp against the gray sky. My hands ached from the cold, but inside me, something burned steady. Back home, I spread the documents across my kitchen table. Mortgage, loans, co-signatures. All the strings they thought were invisible. But I held every knot. And then, something else. A thought sharper than the rest. Chloe. The phone in her hand. The video. If she posted it, if she sent it to friends, I'd be the punchline of a family joke on the internet before New Year's. No, that couldn't stand. I opened my laptop. My fingers weren't fast, but they were sure. I knew Chloe's school account. I knew the principal's email. After all, I'd donated enough books to their library. If that video appeared, I'd know exactly where to send a copy. Caption: This is how the Johnson family treats their grandmother. I didn't send it yet. Not yet. Revenge isn't about swinging wildly. It's about patience. Timing. Making sure when you strike, they can't get back up. The house was quiet when the phone rang. David. I let it buzz until the voicemail picked up. His voice came through, too casual. Hey, Mom. Sorry if last night upset you. The kids didn't mean anything. You know how it is. Anyway, we'll see you tomorrow for brunch, right? Bring that cake. The kids love it. The nerve. The arrogance. He thought I'd be back at that table, smiling like nothing happened. I deleted the message. My finger hovered for a moment, then pressed harder than needed. Gone. I stood by the window. Outside, children's voices carried through the cold air. Someone down the street was building a snowman. Laughter rose, pure and bright. A sound I used to love. Now, all I could hear was my own voice in my head. They don't get to laugh at me again. They'll choke on it before the year is out. I pulled the curtain shut. And on the table behind me, the folders waited. Evidence. Power. The first move had been made. Granny Jo has frozen their credit line and gathered proof of debts and deeds. But Chloe's video looms like a hidden knife, one that could cut either way if she releases it. You don't swing the hammer first. You loosen the screws. So when the walls fall, they can't figure out which hit did it. By Monday morning, the screws were loose. I'd frozen their credit, pulled deeds, and stacked folders like dominoes on my kitchen table. It was time to tip the first one. I started small. Insurance. Laura had begged me last spring to co-sign her family plan. Said it was temporary, just to get through a gap. Temporary, my foot. She'd never switched it back. My name still guaranteed half of their medical coverage. One call, calm and clipped, and the policy was suspended pending review. The rep on the phone hesitated. Ma'am, that will affect dependents, children, spouse. I know, I said. My voice didn't shake. Send confirmation by mail. Not email. Mail. Click. Done. By lunchtime, I walked to the post office with a stack of envelopes. Each one held certified copies of the loans, the deeds, the co-signed agreements. I addressed them not to David or Laura, but to their mortgage officer, their bank branch, even the HOA president Laura liked to brag about. Every institution that thought the Johnsons were stable, responsible, respectable, well, they were about to get the truth in black and white. I slid the stack into the slot. The sound of paper hitting metal echoed like a gunshot. Walking home, the snow crunched under my boots, sharp and loud. The air smelled of wood smoke from a neighbor's chimney. I breathed it in steady. For the first time in years, I didn't feel like a ghost in this town. I felt like thunder waiting on the horizon. At 3:14 p.m., the first call came. David. I let it ring out. A voicemail. His voice tight this time, not casual. Mom, the insurance company just called. They said the account's inactive? Did you? Look, I don't know what's going on, but this isn't funny. Call me. Not funny. The words made me laugh, bitter and low. A prank wasn't funny, but watching their castle sink? That was justice. By evening, I had mail of my own. A thin envelope from the bank confirming closure of Laura's credit card line. I placed it on the table beside the fruitcake, untouched still, heavy with silence. Both were proof, one of my patience, one of their cruelty. I poured tea, sat at the table, and thought about the video. Chloe's phone had caught it, me opening nothing, their laughter filling the room. If she shared it, the town would see me humiliated. But what if I flipped it? What if the whole town saw them for what they were? I set the teacup down so hard it rattled. Yes, that would be next. I knew people at church. Women who'd been cast aside by their own children. One runs the church newsletter. Another moderates the town Facebook page. They'd love a story. Not for gossip, but for truth. I'd let the video breathe where it hurt the most: public, undeniable, raw. But not yet. Timing. At 9:07 that night, Laura called. Not David. Laura. Her voice dripped honey but cracked around the edges. Joe, we need to talk. There's been some kind of mix-up. Our insurance is suspended, our credit cards frozen. The bank says paperwork was mailed, your name's on everything. Please tell me this is a mistake. I let her talk. Let her beg in circles. Then I cut in, my tone flat as ice. Mistakes are accidents. This isn't. She gasped. Why? We're family. I almost laughed. Family. That word, spoken by the woman who handed me an empty box with a smile. You showed me what I was to you, I said. Now I'm just returning the gift. I hung up before she could answer. The house was silent. Outside, the snow fell heavier, muting every sound. I leaned back in my chair, heart steady, hands calm. The first blow had landed. But the war had just begun. And tomorrow, everyone in Maplewood would see the Johnsons' perfect little Christmas for what it really was: rotted at the core. Granny Jo has cut their insurance and credit, mailed proof to banks and neighbors, and hinted at releasing the Christmas prank video publicly. The family is panicking, but she's only getting started. The morning after I hung up on Laura, Maplewood felt different. Not the weather, the snow still lay heavy on the sidewalks, gray with salt and exhaust. But the air around town buzzed. A kind of murmur. A rumor just starting to grow teeth. I walked to the bakery for my usual rye loaf. Inside, heads turned. Not pitying looks. Curious. Measuring. Morning, Joe, the girl at the counter said, but her eyes darted to the couple behind me, like she knew something I didn't. By the time I reached home, I did know. The church newsletter had arrived early. Folded neat, smelling of ink and coffee. Right there on page 2, under Community Concerns, was a grainy still image. Me, sitting in that armchair on Christmas Eve, silver paper in my lap, staring into a box of nothing. And beside me, Laura and the kids doubled over in laughter. The caption? Is this how Maplewood treats its elders? No names, but no one in town needed names. Everyone knew the Johnsons. Their house on Maple Street, their matching sweaters every December, their smug holiday cards bragging about promotions and perfect children. Now everyone saw what I saw: cruelty dressed as cheer. By noon, my phone was full of messages. Not from David, he'd stopped calling. From women I hadn't heard from in years. Joe, I saw the picture. Lord, I thought it was just me they treated like furniture. My daughter hasn't invited me for Christmas in 5 years. Watching you, I felt less alone. I read each one slowly, the way you sip whiskey when you haven't had a drink in years. Burn and warmth together. At 2 p.m., the second shoe dropped. The HOA president called. His voice was stiff, all business. Mrs. Johnson, your son's account is overdue. Payments have bounced. And, well, certain documents suggest your funds were involved. We don't look kindly on that kind of creative bookkeeping. I let him speak. Let him twist. Then I said, thank you for letting me know. I'll be sure to keep my affairs in order. Click. Done. By evening, Maplewood's gossip channels were on fire. Facebook posts. Sideways glances in the grocery aisle. I didn't have to spread the story. The story was running on its own legs now. That night, the knock came. Hard. Desperate. David. His face was pale, his eyes sunken. Not the boy I raised, not even the man who once borrowed money with fake gratitude. This was someone cornered. Mom, he said, voice low. You have to stop this. Stop what? I asked. Calm. Like I didn't already know. The insurance, the bank, the picture. His voice cracked. People at work saw it. My boss pulled me into his office. Do you understand? My job is on the line. I looked at him. Really looked. The man who once clung to my hand crossing icy sidewalks now stood shaking on my porch because the world finally saw him without my cover. You should have thought of that, I said, before you handed me a box of nothing. He flinched. It was a joke. I stepped closer, my voice sharp as frost. And this? This is my joke. Do you hear anyone laughing? For a moment, the only sound was the wind scraping the gutters. He looked at me like he didn't recognize me. Maybe he didn't. Maybe he'd forgotten I was more than a wallet with wrinkles. Mom, he whispered, almost pleading. You'll ruin us. No, I said, steady. I'll remind you. And then I closed the door. On the other side, I heard him curse under his breath, then silence. Inside, I leaned against the wood, heart pounding but steady. They thought I'd break. They thought I'd crawl back with apologies. But now the whole town was watching, and the cracks in their perfect picture were spreading fast. And I wasn't done yet. The humiliating photo has gone public, David's job is now in danger, and Granny Jo makes it clear, this is only the beginning. It doesn't take much to start an avalanche. One crack in the ice, one sound too loud. And then the whole mountain comes down. By the first week of January, the Johnsons were slipping under snow they couldn't dig out of. Not real snow, though Maplewood sidewalks were still choked white, gray with salt and exhaust, but a heavier kind. Overdue bills, bank calls, and the thick silence of neighbors who used to wave, but now crossed the street. The first sign came in my mailbox. A thick envelope from Franklin Community Bank. Certified, stamped official. I sliced it open with my bread knife at the kitchen table. Inside were two notices. Mortgage payment returned insufficient funds. Second attempt declined. I set the papers down beside the fruitcake still wrapped in foil, heavy with silence. Both were proof, one of my patience, one of their cruelty. The second sign came at the grocery store. Laura, all dolled up in her fur-trimmed coat and lipstick too red for 10 in the morning, loading items onto the conveyor belt. Only this time it wasn't brie and imported olive oil. It was generic cereal, bulk rice, discount milk. She was counting coupons, her hands shaking. The cashier, a boy no older than 20, gave her that sideways pity smile, the kind people wear when they're glad they're not you. Laura tried to hold herself tall, but her face flushed pink, blotchy under the fluorescent lights. From 2 aisles away, rye loaf in hand, I watched. She never saw me. Or maybe she did and couldn't bear it. Either way, it tasted sweeter than any holiday dessert. By Saturday night, the phone calls started again. Not the syrupy apologies, not the begging. These had teeth. David's voice came sharp, ragged. Mom, what the hell are you doing? You've frozen our accounts, the insurance is gone, and now this. His voice cracked. That picture's everywhere. People at work saw it. My boss pulled me into his office. Do you know what it's like to sit there while he waves it in my face? He called me a bully. Me? Then maybe you shouldn't have laughed, I said. My tone flat as the January sky. It was a prank, he snapped. You don't ruin someone's life over a prank. I let out a bitter laugh. Funny. That's exactly what you tried to do to me. The silence that followed wasn't just quiet. It was heavy, dense. Then came the sharp click of him hanging up. The third sign came Sunday morning at church. I don't go often anymore, my knees ache on those wooden pews, but I went that day. I wanted to see. And I saw. Laura and the kids didn't sit in their usual front row. They hovered near the back, stiff, eyes darting. When the hymn books opened, no one offered to share. When the choir sang, voices lowered near them, like people didn't want to be caught harmonizing with hypocrites. After service, I lingered near the bulletin board, adjusting my scarf. I overheard enough to know the avalanche had picked up speed. Shameful, laughing at their own mother like that. If they can do that to her, what else goes on in that house? David always thought he was better than the rest of us. Now we see. By Monday morning, I made my next move. I pulled up the video, Chloe's video. She thought she deleted it, but I'd saved it the moment it appeared online. All it took was a right click. There I was, unwrapping the silver paper. There was the empty box. And there they were, my son, his wife, my grandchildren, laughing until they nearly fell off the couch. The sound of that laughter, once a blade in my chest, now cut them instead. I attached it to an email. Not to friends, not to neighbors. To the Maplewood Gazette and the Channel 7 News tip line. Subject line, the perfect family's Christmas joke. I didn't sign it. Didn't need to. The footage spoke louder than any signature. By evening, it was everywhere. Played on a loop at the diner. Whispered over coffee at the library. Shared in group chats. And the comments, God, the comments, spread like fire through dry leaves. Disgusting. Who does that to their own mother? I used to look up to David. Not anymore. Hope the promotion was worth it. Bet HR's seen this by now. Not a prank. It's cruelty. By Wednesday, Laura's little circle of yoga moms had dropped her. Her Instagram went quiet. No hashtags, no charity posts, no glossy family portraits. Just silence. Silence says more than words. At David's company, the axe fell harder. Conduct unbecoming. They put him on unpaid leave. He called me, voice frayed. Mom, you don't understand. If I lose this job, we lose everything. The house, the kids' tuition, all of it. You should have thought of that, I said, before you handed me a box of nothing. He tried to answer, but I cut him off. You gave me emptiness. Now you get to live in it. Click. I hung up. That night, I lit a candle on my kitchen table. The flame flickered against the papers spread around me. Mortgage documents, loan statements, insurance forms. My arsenal. The fruitcake still sat wrapped, untouched. I finally sliced a piece, poured myself tea, and ate in silence. The sweetness didn't taste like sugar. It tasted like justice. But as I chewed, I knew this wasn't the end. This was only the middle. Humiliation was good. Losing friends was better. But money, that's where it hurt deepest. And the Johnsons were about to learn what real emptiness felt like. The avalanche has destroyed their reputation. David's job in jeopardy, Laura shunned, the children humiliated. But Granny Jo isn't done. Next comes the financial kill shot that will strip them bare. Money doesn't lie. It doesn't hug you at Christmas, doesn't whisper apologies. But it always shows where loyalty really lives. By the second week of January, their loyalty had evaporated like steam off frozen pavement. I'd kept quiet after the video went viral, watching the cracks spread. David's company suspended him. Laura's friends disappeared. The kids stopped posting their staged little selfies. Maplewood had turned its back. That was humiliation. But humiliation fades. Bills don't. So I sharpened the blade. On Monday, I met with a lawyer downtown. His office smelled of leather and printer ink, the kind of place where truth gets notarized. He was younger than me by 30 years, but his eyes widened when I slid the folders across his desk. Mortgage papers. Co-signed loans. Insurance agreements. Every signature tying them to me like chains. I want every tie cut, I said. My voice didn't shake. I don't care if it drowns them. They threw me overboard first. He flipped through the papers slowly, nodding. We can revoke your guarantees. File notices. Once it's processed, their accounts will collapse without your backing. Good, I said. Make it fast. By Wednesday, the calls started again. The first was Laura's voice, brittle as cracked glass. Joe, please, please. The bank says we're in default. They're threatening foreclosure. We can't cover the payments without your co-signature. You don't want your grandchildren homeless, do you? The way she said grandchildren, like a weapon. Like they were hostages in some war I never started. Homeless. I repeated, cold. Maybe you should have thought of that before you filmed your little comedy show. Her breath hitched. I hung up. By Friday, the hammer landed. The Johnson house, my house, if you count the $40,000 I bled out of my retirement fund for their down payment, was listed for foreclosure review. A notice nailed right onto their front door. White paper, black print, ugly and final. I walked by that afternoon. Snow crunched under my boots, the air sharp with wood smoke. Laura was on the porch, yanking at the paper, her hands red from the cold. She saw me. For the first time in weeks, she didn't sneer. She looked small. "You did this," she hissed. Her voice shook. "No," I said. My breath came out in white puffs. "You did." Behind her, Chloe hovered in the doorway, eyes rimmed red, phone nowhere in sight this time. Sammy wasn't even visible. Maybe hiding upstairs. The neighbors were watching. Curtains twitched. Heads peeked. The Johnsons weren't Maplewood's golden family anymore. They were the spectacle, the cautionary tale. And me? I was just walking home with my rye bread, calm as you please. That night, David called. His voice was hollow. "Mom, we're losing everything." I sipped my tea, let the steam warm my face. Everything was mine to begin with. He didn't argue. He didn't beg. He just breathed heavy, broken. And for the first time in years, I heard silence on his end of the line that wasn't contempt. It was fear. I let it hang a moment before I spoke. "You gave me an empty box. Now you know what empty feels like." Then I hung up. The avalanche was complete. Their house, their money, their reputation, sliding down the mountain, gone. But I still wasn't finished. There was one last strike waiting, sharper than all the rest. Because revenge doesn't end with loss. It ends with truth. And I was about to deliver it where it would cut deepest. Their home is collapsing into foreclosure, their finances ruined, and Granny Jo is calm in the wreckage. But she hints at a final strike, a truth yet unrevealed. You know when a storm's about to split open the sky. The air feels thick, charged, waiting for lightning to strike. That was Maplewood in late January. The Johnsons were drowning. Foreclosure notice nailed on their pretty white porch. David suspended from work, Laura whispered about at the salon, the kids shrinking into shadows. But still, they clung to the lie, that I was overreacting, that they were victims of some misunderstanding. So I gave them no place left to hide. It started with a letter. Not from me. From the Maplewood Gazette. The editor had called me the week before, polite but hungry, asking if I'd comment on the Christmas incident. I said nothing. Didn't need to. I'd already slid a manila envelope across her desk. Inside, copies of every check I wrote, every tuition bill I covered, every mortgage statement with my name printed clear. Proof that the Johnson empire was built on my back. On Wednesday morning, the story broke. Front page. Headline in bold. The empty box. How Maplewood's perfect family built their life on Grandma's money. Underneath, 2 pictures. The still frame from Chloe's video, me holding the empty box while they laughed. And beside it, a photo from bank records, David's grinning face the day he signed his mortgage, my shaky signature beneath his. The article didn't hold back. It named every debt I'd covered. Every time I'd been their safety net. Every piece of paper where they promised repayment and never delivered. By noon, everyone in town had read it. At the diner, the article lay folded open on every counter. At church, the whispers weren't whispers anymore. In line at the post office, a woman touched my arm gently and said, "They'll never laugh at you again, Joe." At 3 p.m., David showed up at my house. Not angry this time. Broken. His coat was half-zipped, hair wild, eyes red. He looked older than me in that moment. "Mom," he rasped, standing on my porch. "Please. Call them. Tell the paper it's not true. I'll do anything." I opened the door just enough for him to see my face. Not wide, not kind. "It is true," I said. "And you know it." His lips trembled. "They'll fire me. We'll lose the house." "You already lost it," I said, calm as stone. "You just haven't packed the boxes yet." Laura came the next day. She didn't knock, she stormed in, her heels clacking like gunfire on my hardwood. She slammed the Gazette down on my table. "You vindictive witch," she spat. "Do you know what you've done? Chloe's crying herself to sleep, Sammy won't go to school, David can't show his face in town. You've destroyed us." I stood, slow, deliberate. The air smelled faintly of her perfume, sickly sweet, layered thick to hide the stench of panic. "No," I said, voice sharp. "You destroyed yourselves." I just stopped sweeping the pieces under the rug. Her eyes glittered with hate. She wanted to strike, I could see it, the way her hand twitched against the paper. But she didn't. She turned, grabbed the doorknob, and hissed, "You'll die alone for this." The door slammed so hard the windows rattled. I sat back down at my table, lit a candle, ate a slice of the fruitcake that had lasted longer than their empire. And as the snow fell outside, thick and relentless, I knew the storm wasn't over yet. There was one more strike left in me. One truth they hadn't faced. One door I was going to close forever. The town now knows everything, the debts, the betrayal, the empty box. David and Laura are broken, the children humiliated. But Granny Jo hints at one final, devastating move that will finish the revenge once and for all. Revenge isn't about fire. It's about silence. The kind that echoes after the shouting's done. By February, the Johnsons were shadows of themselves. The house stood half empty, boxes stacked in the windows like gravestones. David lost his job. Laura was selling jewelry on Facebook Marketplace, cheap captions under glossy rings she once flaunted at the country club. Chloe quit cheerleading. Sammy stopped smiling. Maplewood no longer whispered about them, it pitted them. And pity cuts deeper than hate. I could have stopped there. Let them crumble under the weight of their own debts. But one thing remained. The will. For years, David had power of attorney. He thought my house, my savings, my land would all fall into his lap when I was gone. A golden parachute. A reward for cruelty. I changed it. Quietly. Legally. Irrevocably. The lawyer slid the papers across his polished desk. All assets, trusts, accounts shifted. Beneficiaries updated. I signed my name with a steady hand. No tremor. No hesitation. Not a cent to David. Not a crumb to Laura. Not a dime to the children who laughed as I opened emptiness. Instead, the bulk went to Maplewood's women's shelter, the one I'd scrubbed floors in when I was younger, the place that gave me a bed when I had nothing but bruises and hope. And a portion went into a trust, small but solid, for kids in town who'd lost grandparents. Kids who needed someone steady. Kids who knew what it was to be forgotten. When I left the lawyer's office, the air was sharp, clean. Like the storm had broken and left the world scrubbed new. 2 nights later, the phone rang. David's number. I almost didn't answer. Almost. His voice was hoarse. "Mom, we got the letter. The will. Is it true?" "Yes," I said. One word, sharp as a blade. He choked out a sound, half sob, half curse. "How could you? How could I?" I repeated. My laugh was dry. "No, David. How could you?" The silence stretched. Heavy. Then he whispered, "We have nothing left." "Now," I said, "you know how it feels." And I hung up. That night, I didn't light a candle. Didn't brew tea. I just sat by the window, watching the snow fall under the street lamp. Quiet. Still. The house smelled of wood and lemon polish. My chair creaked when I leaned back. Outside, the world moved on. Inside, I felt something I hadn't in years. Not triumph. Not bitterness. Freedom. I closed my eyes, breathed deep, and whispered into the silence, words sharp enough to last longer than any fortune, any lie, any empty box. "They won't laugh at me again.